Kia ora, welcome back to the show. We are now just hours away, of course, from the historic lockdown of the whole country to stop the spread of COVID-19. A state of emergency is now in place. Now, you will have to stay at home for the next 4 weeks from 1 minute to midnight tonight and only allowed to leave to go to the supermarket or out for a walk. This is unless, of course, you work in essential services. There are now 205 confirmed or suspected cases of COVID-19 in New Zealand, 50 more than yesterday. Joining me now is Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. Prime Minister, hello.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for your time. Why aren't you quarantining everyone coming into the country?
Well, we expect, and this is our best estimate, we expect that we'll have roughly 10,000 coming in through till roughly the end of the month. Now, we've got to make sure that what we do with those New Zealanders coming home is ultimately protect their health and the health of others. Our view is the best way we can do that is putting those who are at the highest risk, those who are symptomatic, or those who are unable to isolate themselves as they travel to get to their final destination, or who cannot self-isolate themselves, into an approved facility. So that's what we'll do.
What's the problem? Do you not have enough hotel rooms to quarantine them all?
Well, one question, Heather, is whether or not that's actually the best thing to do.
Why would it not
be? Everyone. Because think about the Diamond Princess. Of course, we've got to make sure that when we have a group of individuals together, some of whom are symptomatic and may well have COVID, whether or not we can do that in a safe way that doesn't unnecessarily spread COVID
to those who do not. Do we have proof, Prime Minister? Do we have proof? Because what you're talking about is using hotels, using whangaparaoa. Do we have any proof that it spreads through those areas like it does on a cruise ship?
Well, we know what happened on the cruise ship.
Yes, but we're not talking about a cruise ship here.
If you'll let me finish. We know what happened on the cruise ship. If we have individuals who, for instance, aren't doing food preparation in an appropriate way, in a well-managed way, that is one way that COVID can spread amongst a group, and that can equally happen in a hotel if not managed properly, as it could on a cruise ship. So for the numbers that are coming in, we've assessed that the best thing we can do is for those that we do know are symptomatic and that we have concerns about, go into a facility. If we know that they are unable to get themselves to their self-isolation without putting themselves into contact with others, then we'll be putting them into a facility. Or if they don't have a plan, if they don't have the ability to self-isolate properly, they go into a facility.
You've run us
now,
through
for everyone else, then we're going to also put in extra protections. So police have been doing spot checks. They will be following up on those individuals who are self-isolating. If they are not doing what they are meant to be doing, we will quarantine them ourselves and we will fine them.
Yes, but by then it might be too late. This is a system that relies highly on trust, right? And we've been here and done that. That is probably why we have a problem right now, is that we've relied on people to self-isolate and it hasn't worked. So it has problems.
No,
so let's go back.
Heather, I'll correct you there. Heather, if I can just correct you based on some facts.
Please
We've
do.
had requirements around self-isolation for people at the border since the beginning of February. We had successfully over 10,000 New Zealanders required to self-isolate and did successfully with not one case. And in fact, we're about to move into a situation where we're asking every New Zealander to self-isolate.
Prime Minister, come on. We had stories about people jumping on helicopters for scenic rides when they should have been self-isolating. It doesn't work.
If I could just finish, we actually are relying on everyone now self-isolating, Heather, every single one of us. I have to reduce down my contact. You have to reduce down yours. Everybody has to now move into a space where they act like we all are carrying COVID-19. That's how we have to behave. And it's not just about people who are returning from overseas, although those we are treating very differently for good reason. It's now about all of us.
Yes, Prime Minister, I understand, but you yourself have said that the cases coming in are the ones coming in from over the border. So what is the problem with quarantining them all? Do you not have enough hotel rooms or available space?
I've just answered that question. Firstly, of course, 10,000 individuals. So, of course, we have to keep in mind, is it the best deployment of our resource to put every single one of those into a hotel room when 10 minutes down the road their home might be, and that might be empty for them to sit in by themselves. when that might be putting them in close proximity to a range of other cases that we need to appropriately manage. So we have risk assessed the best way to deal with all those thousands of people coming in and come up with a plan that we can make sure puts the best interest of everyone's public health first.
Prime Minister, I appreciate that you'd answered the question. I asked it again because I was looking for a more satisfactory answer because there are holes all over this. We'll move on to wage subsidy, seeing as we're at a stalemate.
Heather, if we may choose to disagree on this, but I will make again the point that the health advice I've also had is we've got to think about whether or not that is the best way to manage that number of people in close proximity to one another. And I do listen to advice. That is why the country is about to go into lockdown.
We are hearing stories about businesses taking the wage subsidy and then firing staff anyway. What is going to happen to businesses breaking the rules like that?
So we, of course, have the ability to go back and check if anyone reports into us that is what has happened with their place of work. That is something that we will follow up on and chase. We have told businesses, and they are signing statutory agreements, if they are not fulfilling the expectations of the use of the wage subsidy, that is fraud.
Would you like their employees to dob them in, and if so, where to?
We'd like to know, but also what we told people at the time that they signed those statutory agreements is that we can make public those businesses who are accessing the wage subsidy. So that way, and members of the business community, employees, they'll all know whether or not it's being treated appropriately. We've had a number of situations now, Kaikoura, Christchurch, where we've had to use support mechanisms to keep people in work, and we do rely, of course, on businesses being honest, but we also do audit, but that's one mechanism we can use to act as a bit of a self-check as well.
We're going to have to pay for this at some stage. Are we looking at likely raising business taxes?
Oh, that's nothing we've considered at this time, Heather. We have already acknowledged, of course, that with the package we've put in place already, that would increase our borrowing, but we were in a good debt position to begin with. But this is going to cost the world and every economy. Can
you rule out raising business taxes?
Oh, that is not part of our plan right now. In fact, what you'll see, Heather, is we're doing everything we can to support business right now. We've even eased up on things like the ability to write off low-value assets and depreciation to support business. So that is not in our thinking.
Okay, when we wake up tomorrow and we are now in lockdown, what should we expect to see on the streets? Will the police be out patrolling?
Yeah, so look, ultimately that operational side we are leaving with the police, but you will expect to see more of them. They are going to operate a regime where basically if they see someone out on the street and if they feel they need to, they might ask where people are going, but you expect them to do it in the way that the New Zealand police behave. So people shouldn't be afraid if they see that. It's just a part of the environment right now.
If there are those amongst us who are not totally following the rules, if that happens, should we expect to see the army called in?
So ultimately, I expect, and the police have told me, that their approach will be, first of all, and it will be predominantly the police. The army, of course, in these environments, do have a role to play, but we're leaving the police to work with them. But first and foremost, it's most likely the police you'll see out and about. So if they see someone that they want to talk to about what they're up to, they'll just share the rules. They'll encourage some people to follow through on them. They'll assess whether or not people are or not. If they feel the need, they may give a warning. If they feel the need, they do have the ability to arrest and detain. And they also, if it's serious enough, have the ability to arrest and prosecute.
Those who are essential workers, will they need letters from their employer to say that they are essential workers?
I mean, look, many of those people it will be obvious if someone's working in a supermarket or if they're in a pharmacy or if they're an essential worker at a hospital and they carry ID. But if you're out walking, of course, you won't be carrying a letter saying you're just going out for a walk. So common sense will apply, and the police will just be applying the same practices that they do day to day when they're having to assess whether or not people are out and about doing what they should be.
Should we expect roadblocks or checkpoints?
That's something. Ultimately, we're leaving the enforcement at an operational level to the police.
Prime Minister, why can you not answer these questions? No, I need to finish this question. Why can you not answer these questions about what the police are doing? This seems to be a fundamental part of this.
If you finish a question, there is no reason for us to have roadblocks moving in and out of different areas of New Zealand, because ultimately everyone is in lockdown. People are allowed to go to the supermarket. They're allowed to go to their local GP. If you're in an isolated area, that might mean you're covering great distance. But I ask everyone to use common sense. Stay local. The police will be monitoring and talking to people about their movements. And to be fair, Heather, I am answering your questions. But the operations of the police always have constabulary independence, so they have to do their job at their discretion. That's normal at any circumstance, let alone the one we're in at the moment.
If we have Kiwis, Prime Minister, who can't come home, are we going to be conducting mercy flights?
Well, what we're referring to really with those mentions of mercy flights is the support that could be provided via Air New Zealand, because we are supporting them, and part of our requirement of them and condition of that support was they continue to operate routes that go into areas where New Zealanders are. The issue is that we won't necessarily, with transit routes shutting down, those options are closing too. So look, we gave the warning they needed to come back. Now we're saying many New Zealanders will need to stay where they are because those transit routes are closing down.